is just to say, first of all, I learned not to make any jokes, so I'm not making any jokes in the introduction. My name is Keith Venables. We are putting this thing on tonight. We're Derby, 50,000 people club. I'm going to welcome Ian in a minute. We began trying to bring progressive voices to Derby. So far, this has included Professor Daniel Dorling, who talked about injustice and why it persists, Ban Theatre's lively show about the cuts, Granville Williams, who said gotcha to Murdoch, and that was an interesting, controversial meeting. Next year, we hope to get Billy Bragg to come along, and the year after, possibly Naomi Klein, who's already responded to us with some interest. Am I going too fast, Ian?
Not at all.
Okay, right. No, not at all.
It's a bit like responding with interest.
In the rest of this year, we've got two more events. One is a discussion about David Cameron's Big Society and the social fight back, which he's kind of launched against what people really want, perhaps, and a Christmas party on the 13th of December, for which there are tickets on sale, Linda. So if you'd like to buy a ticket for the Christmas party, £5, there'll be two comedians on then, and there will also be just a pleasant evening with food and so on. There's a stall outside, and actually there are lots of stalls outside. Thank you for all those who come along with their stalls tonight. I think they need Okay, but what we'd like you to do most of all is to have a look at the things we've given you and choose who you'd like to come to Derby in the next year or three. Write them in and say who you think will be good people to come to Derby, and hand that in at break. So now for the sheer pleasure of introducing Ian. I've listened to Ian on radio for some years now, on the Radio 3 The Verb. The reason why we asked him to come this evening was from his Desert Island Disc performance a few months ago, in which he said, what distinguishes humans from tortoises, or was it slugs?
It was grapefruit.
There's a belief that we should look after each other, and taxing for each other is part of that, and that's a really, really good idea. I then heard Ian a few weeks ago with Stephen Fry, and Stephen Fry was saying something like, well, surely people say to you, this Barnsley accent's not real, this is Danos. And Ian said in response, well, actually, it's like Prince Charles. At home, I speak like Ian McMillian. At home, Prince Charles speaks like me.
That's true.
So, without more ado, it's a real privilege to introduce Ian McMillian.
It's a privilege. Thanks so much, Keith. The reason I get the bit about the introduction is that I always think there are two important bits with any kind of performance of mine. The first bit is the introduction. The introduction has to be right. I love it when they say your name and they go, Ian McMillian, you go, hey, that's me. That's a wonderful moment. It can backfire because I visit a lot of schools. And recently I went to a school in Newark, because they've got one now. And they rang me up and they said, some places don't get that one, I won't name names. Chesterfield, they rang me up and they said, we're going to meet off the train at Newark Northgate Station at 9:30. I said, right, so I got off the train, there's only me got off, and there's one person waiting. And I thought, well, she's come to meet me. So I went up to her and I said, hello, in a friendly fashion, and she looked straight through me. I thought, oh, sorry, this is the wrong person. And I'm stood there looking nervous, and she stood there looking at her watch, and I thought, well, she'd obviously come to meet me. So I went up to her and I said, are you expecting Ian McMillian? And she went, yes. And I said, it's me. And she went, oh. That's her exact word. Oh, and she looked me up and down, like my mum used to. And she said, you're nothing like your photo. I said, oh, well, it's an old picture, can't be helped. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. And we get in the car, and we're going towards the school, and she says, I can't get over, I literally like your photo. I said, oh, well. And then she said, you can't drive, can you? And I said, no. And she said, how do you get about? I said, buses and trains. She said, yes, but surely you must sometimes fly. And I said, not from Newark to Barnsley, no. She didn't laugh, which is a bad sign. As we're approaching the school, I wish I was making this up. As we're approaching the school, she says, look, I'm introducing you to the kids. Let's just get this straight before you start. How many novels have you written? And I said, none. And she said, that explains it. We're getting to school, this is true. There's a big photograph of somebody else. Welcome to Ian McMillian. She said, that's not you. I said, no. She said, that explains it. It turns out there's another Ian McMillian who's an American novelist, and she thought I was in. This book out there, and she went, you didn't write this? I said, no. She said, that explains it. She kept saying, that explains it. On the back of the book, this is true, it says, Ian McMillian teaches at the University of Hawaii. And she said, we couldn't work out how you taught in Hawaii and lived in Barnsley. It's at least 3 buses, you have to change it, brother. The trouble is, all the kids have read your book and they've got some questions to ask. That's alright, I'll answer them. I mean, it was the best half hour of my life. They're saying things like, how does it take to write a book? I'm saying, well, 20 minutes actually. And they're saying, what are they about? I'm saying, well, cheese, if you look at it. So for me, that was a bad start. That was a bad start. start today. And so, it's got to be a good start, you've got to be introduced. And also the publicity has to be right. The publicity for tonight is good. Ian McMillian, an evening with Ian McMillian, that's kind of good. Some places I go to, the publicity isn't quite as good. I brought along, I saved these. I want to show you. It's about non-communication. I did a performance at Melton Mowbray Library. It had all the hotspots. It was part of the Melton Mowbray Comedy Festival. That was a long weekend. And this was their entire publicity. Funny poet, here. I said, is that it? He said, no, there's one on the back door as well. And 3 people turned up, and one of them said, oh, we thought it might be you. I said, yes, that's the power of advertising. That sounds like my smallest audience, but in fact my smallest audience ever, this sounds like it's made up, but it's true, was -2, which sounds impossible, but it's true. If you go up the M1 to Toddington Services, at the back of there's a village of Toddington, there's a pub there called the Sow and Pigs, where the Toddington Poetry Society meet, and I was their guest poet. And I got there, and there were 2 people in the audience, and they were the organisers. And they said, what happens is, we read our poems, then you read yours. I said, right. And they read theirs and went home. We'd like to stay, but we can't. We point an empty room, that's deeply challenged. So I saved these. People said, what's this got to do with poetry? Well, it has, because it's about noticing things. That's what we do as writers. Now, this is Lincoln Central Library. Lovely old library, a front desk, this fantastic handmade notice. You can't see it, but I'll just read it out to you. Just handmade notice, little thing, it just says, we do not supply washing up liquid. What kind of library is that? To Catherine Cook, there's a bottle of squeezy, please. And I said to her, can I have that notice? And she said, I'll have to make another one. But in your own time, not in the firm's time. I did a performance at a place called Skelmanthorpe near Huddersfield, which you'll know, Keith, and it was Skelmanthorpe, for no reason I can work out, is known locally as Shat. The village of Shat. I went to a chip shop in Skelmanthorpe, and the girl behind the counter had a tattoo that said Rosie from Shat. Anyway, the gig was at the youth centre, and it said, Skelmanthorpe Youth Centre Code of Conduct. No bullying, no smoking, no alcohol, no fighting. No antisocial behaviour, no stealing, no swearing, respect everyone, speak to staff members if any worries. Pay your subs, respect the building, football on the football court only. Have fun. They have fun's in very small areas. I've only ever been to the wrong place once. There were 2 schools next door to each other in Knutsford in Cheshire. And I got there, I was supposed to start at 10:30, I got there at 9:30. And I walked in, they went, you're late. I said, really? They said, yes, no time for intro, just start. I said, alright. So I'm in this big school hall about this big, and I'm doing stuff that normally gets laughs, and nobody's laughing. And the teachers are at opposite ends of the room, looking at each other going, and the kids have all got worksheets looking like that. And at the end there was desultory applause, and this is true, the teacher stood up and said, well children, I can honestly say that's the most unusual talk we've ever had from the Cheshire Fire Brigade. I don't know where the fireman was, he must have been next door. He's just changed plans, and why has he brought an axe? Some of these notices are so specific. I've got a brace of specific notices here, this top one. A little village hall in Norfolk, a very specific notice, just says, please place nothing on this piano. It's not, do not place anything on this piano, but go and get some nothing and put it off here. That one from a school in West Yorkshire, do not trip over the feet. It doesn't tell you which feet or why, just don't trip over them, whatever you do. This is my favourite, let me get this out here, one of my favourites. I was up in a village hall, up in a place called Ireby, which is up in near Bastonthwaite in the Lakes. In a little changing room around the back, so you can get changed for your performance. But on the changing room, very strange notice says, please do not close the curtains. Oh, that's strange, because it's a changing room. That is very strange. The other side of that, this other notice that says, please switch the stairs lights off. If you can read this, you've not switched them off. Please do not close the curtains. Well, if you shut the curtains, you can't see that notice. That's a kind of strange sense. I found that in another school in West Yorkshire. What kind of advice is that to give kids? What kind of advice is that to give? Sometimes they're a bit poignant, these notices. They tell a story. I found this one in a little school down in the south of England. And it was in a music department, and you could tell the music teacher maybe he had a hard life, and he just says, this cupboard contains nothing valuable, only music. But then it's altered it, apart from music. Then I was in another posh school, it was in Cheshire again, and there was like a sixth form common room here, and the school library here. Normally in a sixth form common room, they can make a bit of noise, they can have music on, but I noticed how quiet it was. And there was this notice that's fantastic, 'cause it was next to the library. You can tell it's a good one because it's laminated. You know, send the work experience boy to laminate the notices. And he says, please give names of individuals in the common room making unreasonable noise to Mrs. Chambers. She will deal with them individually. Well, it's worth a try. Mrs. Chambers, come and deal with me individually. I've only got a couple more of these. This is another one, another strange one. Another village hall near Huddersfield, and it tells you what's important in life. And it just says, it is important to move the piano slowly over the grades. That's what's important in life. That's the main thing in life. Move your piano slowly over the grades. That's what's important in life. You should have that on a t-shirt. It's important to move the piano. This is actually my very favourite, as my grandson says. It's, oops, I've torn it in half. It doesn't matter because it's comedy. It was Doncaster Central Library staff toilets. I was doing a gig at Doncaster Central Library. This fantastic notice in the library, staff toilets, and they've made it themselves with a computer. And it just says, phew, now use the air freshener and the toilet brush. Air freshener and the toilet brush? Those librarians, what do they eat? Sometimes when you go to schools, the kids have to fill in a form about you to say what they thought of you. And this girl filled a form. I went to a school in Sheffield. This girl filled a form in about me. And I think you can't spell things wrong. You can only spell things better. And this girl had got what I call creative spelling. She didn't like me at all. She says, visit McMillian Friday 19th of November. Did you enjoy Ian's performance today? Yes, he was fuming. I should spell it, F-U-N-Y. It's a kind of hilarious way of spelling it. Which poem did you like best? The Mothlery. I haven't written one called that, but that's a favourite one. That's interesting. But it's a favourite. Has he inspired you to write poetry of your own? No. No, because I don't like poems. That's good. She's songs. All right. So, the main thing, like I said, is the introduction and the publicity. That's good. And about 4 or 5 years ago, this publisher rang me up and said they'd like me to write my autobiography in verse. That's interesting. Looking back over 50 years in verse. So I'm going to read a couple of poems out of that. It's often about my mum and dad, to be honest, because my dad was that very rare thing, a teetotal Scottish sailor. There are very few of them, and they have quite dull AGMs involving discussions on Vimto and Ribena, which wasn't true. So he said, you've got to write to me using a pen name. So she wrote to him as Olive Oil, and he wrote to her as Popeye for 2 years. And maybe I'm a writer because these letters just kept coming back and forth, and they kept trying to meet, but by now it's the war, the middle of the war, so they arranged to meet. My dad docked at Plymouth, my mum was stationed in Lancashire, and they arranged to meet at the Queen's Hotel in Leeds for tea. And they tried to get, but because of the train, they just missed each other. They only met twice before they got married. Then my dad sent me this fantastic telegram that said, I've got 48-hour pass, stop, let's get married, stop. And so my mum applied for this 48-hour pass, they wouldn't give her one, so she went AWOL for love. She climbed over the fence, and they went to, she got the train, they ended up in Peebles. They got one night of passion together in the Tontine Hotel, Peebles. And my dad disappeared, again on secret war work off to the Far East, and then she went back to the WAPs at RAF Blackbrook in Lancashire, and they arrested her. 2 weeks in the glass house. Isn't that amazing? 2 weeks for love. So maybe I'm a writer because of those letters. And I want to try poems about my mum and dad because they're both gone now. I want to start a poem about my mum because this is kind of a sad poem in a way, but maybe it's not, because when my mum had been ill for years. So when she actually eventually died, it was a shock. It was kind of, you were ready for it, because she was taken ill. I remember she was taken ill on December the 23rd, 2004, and I went to open up for the care, and she obviously wasn't well. So we took her to Barnsley Hospital in the ambulance, and we got there. The doctor looked like Peter Glaze out of Cracker Jack. He went, Mr. McMillian, can I be honest with you? I said, yes. He said, your mother's going to die within the hour, or she'll start to recover. I said, have you got magic powers? And it was amazing. What an amazing thing that was. After an hour, she opened her eyes and started to get a bit better, and that was an amazing thing. But that was like all of her Christmas. She was still very ill. She was in intensive care. And the day after Boxing Day, same doctor, little bloke like Peter Glaze, he came and says, Mr. McMillian, can I be honest with you? I said, yes. He said, we're keeping your mother alive artificially. I said, yeah, you are. He said, have I got your permission to switch the machines off? I said, yeah, let her go. Let her drift away. He said, right, she'll either die in 45 minutes or she'll start to recover. I said, can you tell me what's going to win the 2:30 at Kempton Park? You appear to have magical powers. And it was an amazing thing. After 45 minutes, she opened her eyes, and I've got a picture of my grandson. And I showed her this picture, and that was an amazing thing. She opened her eyes and she went, that's lovely. I thought, blimey, that's astonishing. She recovered, but only from the waist up. So we ended up in this lovely home, a home that we looked after in Woolwell, the next village to where I live. And then 2 years later, she's taken ill again. back to the hospital, different bloke this time, different doctor, a fat bloke with a goatee